What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Age of Reason podcast, AOR News, where we are not for the faint of thought. This is Mike and Alex. So you wanted to start off this episode kind of on a low note. We had a massacre.
Yeah.
We should have a moment of silence, right?
A moment of silence for all the victims. Countless victims.
I was just going to say countless because you can't count them. It makes complete sense.
Countless victims. So I'm sure everybody's kind of heard. But if not, Kellyanne Conway was talking about the Muslim ban that's in effect. And she cited the Bowling Green massacre as a reason for this. So supposedly it was a slip. She said I mistook one word. I said one wrong word, and everybody's having a fit. The problem is she actually went on 3 separate interviews and said the same thing. One of them she said the Bowling Green attack instead of massacre, but still the same kind of idea. And the other 2, she also said it was an attack on our brave soldiers.
Well, she gave an alternative fact.
Yes, it was definitely alternative fact.
I like that. Countless victims.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is a little bit of a story there that she, I guess, grossly exaggerated and turned into a massacre. There was 2 arrests of a former Iraqi refugees in Bowling Green, Kentucky. No one got killed. No brave soldiers were attacked. So, yeah. But on the same note, the White House today just released a list of 78 terrorist attacks that it says were either underreported or not reported on by the media. Did you see that or no?
No, I didn't.
It just
unreported.
It just came out right now. But 2 of the attacks, actually 3 of the attacks on there, I mean, you never heard of them. The attack on Paris, the attack in Orlando, and the San Bernardino terrorist attacks.
Those don't sound familiar.
No. Those were on the list of unreported or underreported terrorist attacks. And the list was basically coming out to shame the media into saying, look, all these terrorist attacks have came out. You guys are not reporting on, and those were just 3 that were included.
Well, I mean, it's not like the Orlando one. I don't know what that is, but I mean, it's not like it was at a nightclub and the largest mass shooting on record done by a U.S. born citizen or anything. You know, not to mention San Bernardino. San Bernardino was on your birthday, yeah. What?
This is more of the war against the media that's kind of been going on, and they're losing when it comes to logic, but they're persistent.
I think on a massive scale, logic has been losing. Speaking of losing. God damn it, Falcons. 25-point lead. Are you kidding me? With the ball in the second half. And I wanted them to win so bad. Just, I grew up a Raider fan. You still are a Raider fan. The Tuck rule, it still hurts me a little bit. So that's my hatred for the Patriots. Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. He is. He is amazing. Arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. But that cheating son of a bitch and Bill Belichick and that piece of shit fucking owner of the Patriots that all endorsed fucking Trump and made contributions and all that shit. I really wanted the Falcons to win because I wanted Trump to go on a Twitter rampage about how the game was rigged. I wanted to see those tweets.
Yeah, Brady and Trump, you can't bet against them. Those fuckers win, I guess, somehow. I had to, I work nights, so I took a little nap in the third quarter. I felt pretty confident, like, okay, I'll take a nap. This commercials were nothing, spectacular.
Yeah.
So then I woke up and I they were down by 7 and driving, and I was just like, oh shit, what happened? And I watched it from there, and I mean, it was a good game, but yeah, definitely not the outcome I was hoping for.
No, definitely not. Anyway, what else we got?
So let's see. So I'm gonna start out by giving Trump a little bit of credit here, and then take it right away. So
Right out
so
of his
the
tiny hands.
So the White House told Israel to slow down on the settlements. Because Israel announced 5,500 new settlements recently since Trump's been elected. I think Netanyahu wants to take advantage of his cozy relationship with Trump. So he announced this is the first settlement expansion since the 1990s. So, I mean, it's been a while. He feels emboldened. And I was actually surprised when Trump told them to settle down and to slow down on the settlements. So as I was doing some homework into it, it appears that our good friend Sean Spicer came out and said that after that the settlements don't impede the peace process, and that there can still be a solution, and that goes against the United States' policy on settlements since the 70s.
Yep.
So not only do we consider it a blockade for peace, we also consider it illegal. Like the rest of the world does. So I was going into it feeling like I was going to give him a little bit of credit, but after reading that press release, never mind.
Yeah, and Spicer. If nobody has seen Melissa McCarthy from SNL last weekend, I am not a huge McCarthy fan, but goddamn, that shit was hilarious. So funny. What else? I have nothing to say about this. I feel I can't trust anything the guy fucking says, and we've talked about Netanyahu in the past, and his whole history is pretty damn interesting, but again, Bernie said on the campaign trail last year, we're not going to get anywhere in the Middle East until we start treating Palestine like humans. So this is completely against that. This West Bank issue, it's not going to go away, and Netanyahu's not going to help, and neither is Trump.
Yep. Okay, so speaking of things that are not going away, the GOP is continuing to pass some batshit crazy laws.
Worse than the silencer one?
This one, yes, because. Yes. Because now that the guns are gonna be silenced, we're gonna put them in the hands of people who are mentally unfit to carry them. So what we have going on now, the GOP passed basically they actually repealed an Obama law. Obama is the one that put this law into effect, and this is the thing, because there's a fiscal part here that to me is boggles me that Republicans did this. But so people before that were collecting Social Security, the Social Security office would give for mental issues, would give this information to the FBI, and these people would not be allowed to purchase guns. So right now, what the GOP just repealed, only people with severe mental issues. So the list that used to exist no longer exists. Only ones with severe mental issues will be blocked from having a gun. So the people that are now allowed are ones like schizophrenia and things like that. They were saying that it's goes against their Second Amendment rights. And I know you had a here was my first thought when I read this. These stupid motherfuckers
The last 8 years, every fucking time we had a shooting, like the underreported nightclub shooting in Florida, or the one that got zero press, San Bernardino. Any of these times, I don't live too far from Aurora, so the Dark Knight massacre that occurred up here in I think that was 2012, 2013. Obama, they would say, oh, and here comes Obama and Hillary about to blame guns when the real problem is the mentally ill. These fucktards have been blaming the mentally ill for the last 8 fucking years and saying that is the reason we are having mass shootings. It's not the easy access we have to guns. It's the fact that the guns get into the hands of those with mental problems. Not to mention, there was a shooting also here in Colorado Springs, Planned Parenthood, where after the guy shot up Planned Parenthood, killing a police officer and I think one other person, he was yelling about stolen what do you call it? Baby parts.
Baby parts.
Yeah, he was yelling about baby parts. Where'd that come from? Carly Fuckface Fiorina, which was also purported by Charles Krauthammer and Bill O'Reilly and Sean Hannity and all the other fucking idiots at Fox News. So they then blame mental illness, and then they turn around and do the. Does anybody else smell bullshit?
Yeah, like I said, to me, I would have thought that they would have considered these people moochers for being on Social Security for mental disorders. I mean, I obviously don't.
Well, I thought about that because I thought about a few years ago when they found out that people on government assistance, were eating lobster and eating like kings and queens and shit, and that's not, they're getting their nails done and their hairs did, and they shouldn't be doing shit like that. That was the first thing I thought of, but if I were to say that to somebody, they would say, yeah, but eating lobster is not a right as an American. We're guaranteed our gun rights, at least for those of us who have small dicks, and we need to compensate. Big trucks, big guns. That's what we do. This is so contradictory to what their message has been for the last 8 years under Obama. Like, I can't put it any more simpler than that. That's all they have talked about is mental illness. Well, and terrorism, but really mental illness. If it wasn't a terrorist, it was a mental illness.
It was a mental illness. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
They're not even trying to hide their shit. They're not even trying to be sly about it.
Yeah.
All right, whatever. I'm done.
They're pulling them out on the table. So this one's an ongoing thing. I'll just mention it quickly. But the GOP, they've voted to repeal Obamacare, I don't know, 20-something times when he was president. It was just an insane amount of time. That's seriously, when they got bored, they didn't know what to vote on in Congress. They said, I know, let's try to repeal Obamacare. And now that it's actually, they have the power to do that, they're starting to realize that's not a good idea. We've talked about the thousands of people that would die just because of the lack of health care. Not to mention the hundreds of thousands of people who it would financially impact. They're starting to realize that those people vote. So the big push to get Obamacare closed and done with has simmered down, and now they're actually trying to figure out how they can repair it.
By the way, the Washington Post has it as 54 times they have tried to repeal Obamacare.
Thank you. I thought it was in the 50s, but I didn't want to exaggerate.
That just sounds ridiculous, right?
Exactly.
It just sounds ridiculous and exaggerated, much like it's ridiculous that they yell about mental health for 8 fucking years, and it's not even a month into the new administration, and they're going back on their word there too. Anyway.
Yeah. So we'll keep people updated, but it's I guess a good thing that they're coming to their senses, but at the same time, you just have to scratch your head and think like, what the fuck do these people do? How do they not realize, yeah, it's going to impact our voters.
And Barack is laughing his ass off at this. He's got to be.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still on vacation. You can come back, Mr. President, anytime you want and help fight the fight. But he has to be laughing about this.
Yeah, but we'll see how far Trump care gets us. So the last thing I have here is Trump's first military action. And it turned out to be a little bit of a clusterfuck. Surprise, surprise. So it was a military raid in Yemen. And the first thing I want to point out is this is the first time we've had boots on the ground in Yemen. So just let that sink in. I mean, we've done drone strikes. Obama, loves his drone strikes. But Trump, his first military action is not a drone strike. It's actually a military boots on the ground in a new country. So Congress wasn't aware of it. That's your president putting troops in harm's way, and unfortunately, one of our soldiers was killed in the incident. So yeah, it's now new chapter.
To be fair, before you go further, the intel and all this shit that was collected was from the Obama administration. However, the execution or the actual how to execute on this intel came from Trump.
Exactly, and that's I think where you see the shift in policy between the two administrations, where Obama's like, hey, we got this remote control thing. This guy just sits in a room, presses a button, and boom. And not to say that that's good, and I don't support drone strikes, but we're not, boots on the ground in a country. Yemen's in a civil war right now, and we just stepped into it. So a couple notes on it. Let's see. The only thing I have is the attack killed 14 Al-Qaeda soldiers, about 24 civilians, including an 8-year-old girl she was the daughter of Anwar al-Awlaki. I remember he was a famous guy, but the reason she was brought up, her death was brought up because her brother was killed in a drone strike in 2011, and now she was killed last week. So
we killed more civilians than enemies.
And and that's a good way to point that out. And there's one other thing to point out. The target of this action was Qasim al-Rimi. Afterwards, he called Trump the goat of the White House and a fool because he missed. The guy's still alive. So
mission not accomplished.
Yeah.
And we lost one U.S. soldier, didn't we?
Yeah. I thought I mentioned that earlier, but yes, we did lose a soldier. And everybody was quick to congratulate Trump for going to visit the family. But like I said before, we had never put the previous administration had never put soldiers in that situation before. So
and we see how he's treated Gold Star families before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And what was that other thing? It was somebody used like a 10-year-old video of some kind or some shit.
That's right. The White House was sent. It was a video supposedly of the raid, and then once people called it out that it was a well-known and distributed video from 10 years previous, the White House had to admit their mistake and take it down. That's a weird mistake.
Yeah, that is a bit odd. So moving on to recap what's going on and update everybody on what's going on with the Muslim ban. Yes, it's a ban, no matter what dipshit and Spicer want to call it. I think we should start calling them Bronzer and Spice. So a federal appeals court rejected Trump's Department of the DOJ's attempt to repeal Trump's ban and reinstate it, his ban on 7 Muslim countries. And Trump responds, just cannot believe a judge would put our country in such peril. This is on Twitter. Can't believe somebody would put our country in such peril. If something happens, blame him and the court system. People pouring in, bad. He also tweeted, the judge opens up our country to potential terrorists and others that do not have our best interests at heart. Bad people. Very happy.
I mean, so let's just think about that honestly. If something were to happen, right, which obviously we all hope that it doesn't, but he just basically just put a freaking hit out on a judge.
Yes, he did. And it's his responsibility to keep the country safe. I remember Obama many times, especially over guns and stuff, will come out and say, Obama did blame Fox News once that I can remember, probably more than that, for basically spinning BS. And he blamed Republican lawmakers for blaming the mentally fucking ill the whole goddamn time he was in office. Just pointing that out. He did do that, but at no point just this type of rhetoric. I mean, in another tweet, he called him the so-called judge. This so-called judge. In another tweet that he put out, I think it was yesterday, he says, any poll that you see that reports negatively on me and my administration is fake news. Anything anybody says about me, if it's negative, wrong, it's fake.
The thing is, it's honestly, I mean, and we've talked about this since pretty much for weeks now, but it's losing its humor and getting more and more like worrisome.
We said that before the end of 2015. We said his humor is not worth it anymore. It's no longer funny. Anyway, so we will say thank you to Judge James Robart of Seattle. Fucking Washington's at it again. So
and I saw an exchange between him and the Trump administration lawyer. The lawyer just wasn't impressive at all in her advancements, and the judge, I mean, just shut her down. Like, yeah. It was a pretty interesting exchange, and it was, to me, almost sad for the lawyer to go up against the judge and have that little ammunition. She just had nothing really to say. Besides,
you can't defend this. This is completely against the First Amendment. Like, there's just no way around this. And as we talked last week, the countries that he didn't ban are countries that have produced terrorists. 15 and 19 hijackers from Saudi Arabia. Kyrgyzstan has produced some. But, what do all those countries have in common? He's got business ties. Every country that he has banned, all 7 of them, none of them have produced a terrorist in this country. That have taken a life. I mean, Iraq is on there, and I mean, we did have a moment of silence for the Bowling Greens massacre. So I mean, there's one if we want to count those countless lives that were lost on that fateful day
of Kellyanne Conway's credibility. But
Fuck
I think
Kellyanne Conway.
I think that's been dead for a long time.
God, she's just fucking awful. Her and Ann Coulter. And her, Ann Coulter, and Tommy Lauren.
Oh yeah.
It's like the three-headed beast right there. Anyway, Pence in an interview did at least acknowledge that the so-called judge does have the authority to halt the ban nationwide, and the administration is complying with it. So I don't think Trump at this point is publicly going to just whip Pence, give Pence lashings in front of everybody. But I have a feeling that when Pence says something, because he did this during a debate, I think over how to handle the Syrian crisis. When Pence publicly disagreed with Trump or kind of went against Trump, I just have a feeling he's whipping Mike Pence at night. Nude.
I would prefer rather not to
nude
think about that.
Nude.
However, I'm thinking a little bit the other way. I think people basically maybe told Pence, like, hey, we need you to babysit. So you got this spoiled brat over here, rich kid. You clean up the damage and don't let him do anything too crazy now.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Yeah. And, I mean, he's in a bit of a lover's quarrel right now, Trump is, because his boy, Bill O'Reilly, where he gets his intelligence briefings from, the O'Reilly Factor, while interviewing Trump a few days ago, he called Vladimir Putin a killer, and the Kremlin is demanding an apology from Bill O'Reilly. And while we have talked about Fox News, and one of the things that I mentioned a few minutes ago about them influencing their news rhetoric influencing a shooting on a Planned Parenthood, they have quite a bit to apologize for, but this is not one of them. But I'm curious to see how the Donald handles this. So, speaking of Mike Pence and things that he jacks off to, let's talk about a law that was passed in Arkansas. This is Act 45, the Unborn Child Protection from Dismemberment Abortion Act, which allows men to sue women and doctors for abortion procedures, even in the case of rape. So basically what this means is if a husband rapes his wife and she gets pregnant, he still can sue her for having an abortion. This was passed in just 2 months, and it prevents all dilation and evacuation procedures, also known as D&E procedures, and this is the safest way to terminate a pregnancy after just 14 weeks. So if you get past a 14-week period, this is the safest way to do it, and that is now banned in the state of Arkansas. And it is now punishable by a fine of up to $10,000 and up to 6 years in prison.
Wow. Yeah, when you...
Yeah, you didn't believe me.
Yeah, I didn't believe you. And I still don't want to. Jesus. This is just, I mean, it's crazy. And, yeah, disgusting, really. We have, a Supreme Court case has decided this issue so long ago, and it's insane that states can, basically dissect laws to have things like this, and it's insane, honestly.
Yeah, and so lastly, this is kind of a funny one. Trump, during Holocaust Remembrance Day, failed to mention the 6 million Jews that lost their lives in the attempted genocide of Hitler's regime. Didn't say a word. Spicer defended this by saying, the Jews weren't the only ones to suffer. They were the most that suffered. You stupid piece of shit. Not a goddamn word about Jewish victims during the Holocaust. Yes, because when I think of Holocaust, and I'm not trying, some people that were non-Jews lost their lives, including LGBT and parts of North Africa. Of course, I'm not trying to take away from them, but I'm sorry. When I think of the Holocaust, I do not think of the fucking gypsies. I just don't. He wasn't trying to rid the world of them. there's no forgiving that. But this is funnier than that. Trump's Black History meeting. He's trying to reach out to Frederick Douglass right now. Thinks he'll be a good part of his cabinet. Maybe that black guy can keep the other black guy, Ben Carson, awake.
Oh man.
I hear
Jesus.
good things. I hear he's doing great things. What the fuck? But a black guy other than Ben Carson who's not doing great things is Dr. Darnell Scott of the New Revival Church in Cleveland, which is a mega church. He lied about connecting with, quote, some of the top gang thugs in Chicago who respect Trump and want to meet with him about lowering the body count. Not eliminating the body count, lowering the body count.
Wait, did you say gang thugs or
quote? He said, "I know some of the top gang thugs in Chicago."
Oh, okay. When you said the connection, you broke up. I thought you said at first. I thought you said the top gay thugs in Chicago, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that was a strong force over there.
Yeah, no, you have no idea.
Okay, so
don't throw that upside down triangle anywhere. Don't get caught wearing purple in a pink neighborhood. You're fucked. So no, top gang thugs in Chicago. Gang thugs. Who respect Trump and said that they want to meet with him about lowering the body count. Trump said this is a good idea, but if this doesn't work, remember, he will fix it because he did tweet that he will be sending in the feds because all black people live in hell. It later came out, though, that Mr. Scott lied about this whole thing, blamed his lie on a lack of sleep, and and that he only knows one guy who used to be a top gang thug in Chicago. So, yeah, that happened. And we got what?
I like that excuse, lack of sleep.
Yeah,
I gotta start using that more.
Well, they use this, when Trump had his outburst with Australia, it was blamed on basically that he was tired and is at the end of a long day of meetings, and I'm just like, poor Jeb Bush, Mr. Low Energy. Wow. He basically he's got the stamina to go all night long on the phone and all that other shit, and he got cranky. There's reports coming out about his apparently his doctor came out and talked about 3 medications that he does actually take, even though they lied about his initial report, that he takes hair loss medication that leads to fogginess and slight paranoia. I mean,
and impotence.
Yeah,
is also a side effect. So
I thought at first I thought it said incompetence, and I was 100% sold there. But impotence makes sense too.
It makes sense, right? So just while we're talking about people fucking up, I think when we were off, Sean Spicer, he tweeted his password twice. Did you see that?
Yeah.
His official password, and then he also retweeted the Onion article, talking about Sean Spicer's role in the Trump administration will be to provide the American people with robust and clearly articulated misinformation. And I guess he didn't know what the Onion was, and he was. So this is what we're dealing with here. So
you can't make it up. You can't
really
do it.
Can't.
Lastly, we got to run through this quick because we're running out of time. But Trump has also vowed to repeal the Johnson Amendment. I'm sure everybody's kind of heard that term thrown around. The Johnson Amendment is a 1954 bill signed into law that was written by LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, when he was a senator of Texas. And this does a few things. One of them that is important, because you and I hear this and we see separation of church and state getting thinner and thinner. The other side of it, too, is under the current IRS rules, nonprofit organizations and their leaders are only prohibited from directly or indirectly participating in or intervening in any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate for elective office. This allows churches, basically, I mean, we know they already tell people who to vote for because, you know, God told them to tell them who to vote for. They all claim that. But this is a huge piece of that wall, the good wall, that's being taken out.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
But
the fact that they have, the fact that they're getting tax breaks.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. If you guys want to talk about politics in your church, that's fine. Just give me my tax dollars.
Yeah.
And if that's the way they want to take it, I'm fine with it. But of course, that's not the case.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I have a quote from Trump on it. He says, "I think this maybe will be my greatest contribution to Christianity." Oh, you mean it's not your freaking Christ-like persona?
Or his second favorite book, The Art of Dealing with Jesus.
And other religions. He then went on to say, "You don't have any religious freedom if you think about it. If you can't do this in church."
Yeah, or fundraise and all that shit. Yeah, perfect. I think they're drastically misunderstanding what nonprofit's supposed to mean or what the 501c3 law is actually about. I've worked with nonprofit organizations. Getting a 501c3 is not an easy thing to do. There are plenty of art buildings and great community centers and research centers. A lot of really good nonprofit stuff, and it's going to pretty much ruin and damage that entire nonprofit sector. So anyway, I'm sure we'll have more news next week. Donald Trump is not letting up. So with that, we'll go ahead and conclude AOR News. Stay tuned later this week for the Standing for Reason podcast, where we'll be talking about Jerry Brown and Starbucks and how Trump really took it to the pharmaceutical companies and probably anything else that happens over the next 4 days. So with that, this has been Mike and Alex on AOR Podcast with AOR News, where we are not for the faint of thought. Check us out on Twitter at AOR_podcast, the Age of Reason Facebook page on Facebook. And for everything else, AORpodcast.com. See you guys next week.